From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Open Line.
Well, good evening and welcome into Open Line. I am Chuck Long, really glad to be with you for this next hour, one of my favorite hours here at News Channel 5 Plus. We are talking about Ask an Expert. Expert in the house tonight, one of our very favorites, Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm. It's Ask That Legal Expert, and if anybody has that legal expertise, it would be Kevin Kennedy. And the thing that we love about this hour, too, is so many of your questions, they don't just help you, they help other people that are listening, because maybe somebody else has that same question. They just haven't asked it. This is the way to do it. 737-7587 is the number that you call when you have one of those questions or comments. So let's welcome our special guest. Like I said, one of my favorites.
Chuck.
So good to see you,
My
Kevin.
pleasure. I'm glad to be with you. You know, in your opening, Chuck, you got to hear this. So I have a number of young lawyers, not in my organization, that watch this show. And they came and said, well, it was a good show. I said, well, you watch? I said, yeah, because we want to learn. And, you know, the truth is, if I had the career to do again, I wish I could watch another guy that's been in the trenches 30, because every young lawyer has a bunch of questions. How do you do this? What about that? Can we do this legally? I don't want to get in trouble. Don't want to be embarrassed. So tonight, it's a great time for you to have your questions. Chuck, he's great to do. I didn't say good. Of course, now I've been training Chuck for a long time.
That's right.
So you must give credit where credit's due, Chuck. But he's my great friend, and we love to share. So we encourage you to call, and it'll give you some peace of mind. In fact, I know things are riding people, and they're a little hesitant. I hear this say, well, I don't want to act stupid on TV, or I'm scared that people will embarrass me. There is no such thing. And somebody heard me the other night, and they said, well, you've got an accent. I said, well, is it Southern or is it country? So you see, quite frankly, right now, it really doesn't matter, whatever you like, because we're just being real tonight, trying to help real people with real problems.
Seriously, Kevin, you know what kind of accent I think you have?
Tell it one time.
Accent of knowledge.
You know, I can't dispute that. I do know a lot. I don't want to say, Kevin, you know everything, because I don't. But I do know a lot. And I love to share a lot. So if you've got that problem, and remember this, I probably ask as many questions as anyone. And I say, what do you think? Because the key is, what would a reasonable person do under these circumstances? And a wise person will seek the counsel of others. Hear two or three, and then you'll feel much better about your situation. And quite frankly, the most creativity out of my legal arguments didn't come from lawyers. It came from average, everyday situations. Touche.
Absolutely. You know, Kevin, you and I have been doing this together
yes,
for years. Years.
Yeah, you were a boy when we got started, Chuck. Please.
As you were. And, you know, when I first started, I realized that I was just trying so hard to keep up with the questions, because we get so many callers that call in during the hour, throughout the hour, the entire time. And I was just trying to keep up with all of those. Once I got comfortable doing the show, I started listening. Yeah. You were just talking about listening. Yes. And now I say it's the University of Kevin Kennedy, because that's what I go to every time that you're here, and I've learned.
It's amazing. You know, even when I have problems writing, tomorrow I will have a very challenging day. I've been in the midst of a lot of challenges, and they're almost overwhelming. And some of the problems come that they are even overwhelming to me. So I like to think about, when we're going through this in the break, and it helps prepare me. Do you really believe that, Kevin? I know it's the truth. And so I have two or three, plan A, plan B, plan C. Kevin Kennedy always has an exit strategy. They always say Kevin Kennedy always has one more move. And a lot of times, you know, I may know this, but that's plan B, because the other young lawyer, he says, well, I got Kev. And he probably does have me on plan A, but he wasn't prepared for plan B. I remember someone saying, I didn't realize that, Kev. And I said, well, you know, I always like to cut a deal. But if we don't get a deal cut, then there's always a little plan B and a plan C.
Absolutely. And you know, Kevin, the other thing, too, and we're going to get to the calls in just a moment, so we're glad that you're calling in. And if you are just tuning in, that's the number on your screen, 737-7587, to call with that question or comment. But I can't tell you how many times I've been, since you and I have been doing this, been in a group of people or been at the office office or in the studio or something, and you're talking and you start saying something about, well, my insurance is claiming that I owe this, but I'd already, this is when you ask those questions.
Yes.
This is where you ask those legal questions. So let's head to the phones.
Go hit 'em.
Right now, Mary is on the line with us, our first caller of the evening. Welcome, Mary. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin? Can you hear us, Mary?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mary. Good to talk to you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I was raised by my aunt and uncle. My real mother couldn't take care of me when I was 3 years old, so they gave me to my aunt and uncle, and they raised me, and I'm nearing 70 years old now, and all of them passed away, and their children on my aunt and uncle's side. As far as I know, there was no will and has not been through probate court. I have two sister-in-laws. One believes it all belongs to her because her husband was the last to die. And I was just wondering, do I have any rights, or where do I stand on that?
Well, one of these situations in your particular, I like for you to talk to a lawyer privately. You have identified the issues. Does this one surviving spouse of a child, do they inherit it all? We have what's known in Tennessee as per stirpes. Intestate, testate. Is there a will? Is there not a will? If there is no will, then it would fall and go under the per stirpes. But I will say this, never say never. And I remember Judge Todd, one of the Court of Appeals judges, was my teacher in evidence at the law school. And he said, and I was a young law student, he said, it ain't necessarily so. Well, that's poor grammar, but it stuck with me for all these years. I taught my law class in the field of evidence, but what do I remember most? It ain't necessarily so. So we have the law, and we have the facts, and then we have a creative legal mind. I would submit to you, go and talk to a private lawyer before you make a lot of hard interpretations. Remember this, the law is going to be interpreted. So it may say this, but our set of facts makes every case different. So thank you for identifying the issue. You have identified them, and I recommend you talk to somebody privately. What's in your best interest for the interpretation?
All right, that is good to know. And also, Kevin, that brings me, again, a friend and I were talking fairly recently. He was telling me about, he has, I forget, maybe 4 siblings. There's a will. One of the siblings wants to borrow money from the parent that's surviving right now. Okay, so they were saying, well, whenever that surviving parent passes, they'll just make a note if they're trying to borrow $30,000 from the parent. And they said, well, I'll just remember and I'll pay you out of the inheritance. Now, my advice was, I said, you should talk to a lawyer.
Yes.
My guess was you shouldn't just say, we'll pay you when that person passes.
No, it needs to be in writing. If we have to do a new will, and we can put an acknowledgement, and there's 4 children, and I'm going to deduct $50,000 out of this child's portion because we've already advanced that. We do those things quite often. So a good understanding keeps down a misunderstanding. The best, they say, a good pencil's better than a long memory. And remember, when it gets to money, my brother Bruce is a lawyer with me all these years. He said, Kevin, there's nothing that will break up a family like the smell of money. And it's funny, children love each other so much, and as they get older, then they have children and they have spouses, and everyone doesn't interpret or remember what was said quite the same. So, touche, my friend.
All right.
You did great.
So I try to learn. All right. We appreciate that call, Mary. We're going to the phone lines again. Martha is on the line with us. Good evening, Martha. We're glad that you're watching Open Line.
Good evening. I have 2 short questions on 2 different subjects. Should I just give you both of them?
Just hit them any way you can, Martha. Good to talk to you.
Okay. First one has to do with a will, and if there's no, if a will has the signature of the person with their full name, I'm sorry, the references to the person in print are in their full name, and then it's signed with just the first name and the last name.
No problem. As long as we can identify, we know that signature, you don't have to have the full name. Next question.
The other issue with that will is that the witnesses' signatures are pretty much illegible, but they printed their names, I mean, their addresses and everything, so it's the same thing on that?
Oh, yeah, no problem. And, you know, most lawyers' signatures are illegible. Most doctors are illegible. So that probably, and, you know, we have what's kind of a self-published kind of signature that we do an extra affidavit, because really, you know, sometimes you have to say, if there's a will contest, they want to know, did Chuck sign that under undue influence? Was he under duress? Did his brother really pressure him? So then the witnesses have to come in. And if you feel like you've got an issue with your family, go have it done. One of the other things we do on those big multi-million-dollar deals, we video it. Hello, come in. And if it's really multi-million dollars, we get a doctor to say, Chuck has his mind. He knows the extent of his family. He knows the extent of his property. And if we have a child that is threatening to sue everyone, we will specifically address that. And so what are you trying to accomplish, Kevin? A good understanding keeps down a misunderstanding. And those people are our clients, and I wouldn't want that to happen to my family. So.
Got it. The other question has to do with death certificate.
Okay, hit it.
And my understanding is that in order to get a death certificate that has all the information, including the cause of death, you have to be an immediate family member. Now, if that is true, first of all, when you go on a website like TMZ and with celebrities, you know, usually they'll have the death certificates and all the information. Some will be redacted, but I'm wondering, first of all, if they've just paid off hospital people, or how they get those if the average person can't. And then in the state of Tennessee, if you were to go to obtain a death certificate, and you understood if I'm in fact correct, that you're not going to be able to, you can't order a certificate that will have the cause of death on it. Is it a violation of, I guess I'm kind of taking the open records thing, where you could actually go down there and just view it?
Okay, you've identified some great issues. I had one similar come through the office today, and they said, we want this report. They go to them, they said, we're not giving you the report. Well, you know, open records, so what do? You just keep going up the chain. You've heard me say time and time again, the squeaky door gets the oil. But I'll say this, y'all better be careful on whatever you put in writing. You say, well, this is private. Hello, come in. Have y'all ever heard of subpoena? Subpoena power. Chuck said this is all private, and you put it on there, and you took tapes, audio, video. A subpoena, you're subpoenaed to bring it in. You said, well, I thought this was private. Well, until the lawyers get a hold of it. So 2 lessons to learn. You keep pursuing it. If it's out there, you can get it. And just because a guy says, I'm not turning this over, you might call back the next day and there's a different operator and put it right on through. So it gets down to personalities, policies, the law, but most importantly, interpretation. If it's out there, I'm here to tell you somebody's going to get it.
All right, so perseverance pays off there. All right, we've got a lot of you on the line with us right now. We'll get to as many calls as we can during the hour, so do stay tuned with us. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, more of those questions right here on Open Line.